Thank you, Mr. President. I had the opportunity to go out by this particular location the other day, and what's happening, Mr. President, is there's an old elm tree there, and the roots are pushing away the curbing, and the curb is actually sticking out onto the road itself, and the sidewalk, because of the trunk of the tree, is all broken up. So I would ask that this be added to the list immediately and be done in the interest of public safety, Mr. President.
Second, Mr. President. On the motion by Councilor Marks, seconded by Councilor Del Russo. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. 17-471. Offered by Vice President Marks. Be it resolved that the city explore the use of solar energy for a municipal building. Vice President Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, of recent, there's been a lot of talk about this community reducing its carbon footprint and ways that we can offer initiatives to do so in the community. And one initiative, Mr. President, which is not a new initiative, is solar energy. And there's been a big push of recent, again, to provide solar energy as an alternative method of powering your home or your business. And I offer this tonight, Mr. President, because it was only back, I believe, in 2014, we dedicated the Alfred Pompeo DPW yard. And I remember at the time that that building was built with the intent that it would accommodate solar panels. And part of the construction cost was to equip that building so it can accept solar panels. And here we are 3 years later. There has never been a solar panel installed at the DPW yard. The city, over the last several years, also, Mr. President, has offered at least 2 or 3 bid proposals that I'm aware of to install solar top panels at Medford High School, the Andrews and the McGlynn, as well as the Roberts, Brooks, and Columbus Elementary Schools. And to date, as far as I know, the proposals have gone nowhere to install solar panels on our schools, Mr. President. And it just so happened a constituent sent me, when they saw this on the agenda, sent me a copy of what the town of Lexington is doing. And it's pretty amazing what can be done if you put a little work into it and a little energy, Mr. President, no pun on that. Lexington just opened a 2.2 megawatt solar power farm, which will generate 30% of Lexington's municipal electricity demand. Combined with the school rooftop solar project that went online in 2014, Lexington will be generating 45% of its municipal electricity demand from solar, saving about $400,000 a year and providing $19 million in energy savings to the town and $8 million in health benefits over the expected life of the system. So, it's well worth it, Mr. President, and many other communities are taking advantage of other green initiatives, such as wind power, solar power, and I think it's only appropriate, Mr. President, that we also, if we do want to reduce our carbon footprint, and I believe the mayor entered into an agreement with a number of mayors around this area to have a zero carbon footprint by the year 2050, I believe is what I read in the paper. And this will go a long way to not only reduce our carbon footprint, Mr. President, but it also sends a message to the community at large that, we're just not going to preach this, we're going to practice this. And we're going to do it in our municipal buildings, we're going to do it in our school buildings, and we're going to make sure that we're taking advantage of any possible savings that we can pass on to the taxpayer of this community. I think it's a sad commentary, Mr. President, when Stop and Shop in Wellington Circle is featured as the largest solar array with 240 kilowatt system, over 800 panels, as the largest solar use in this community. One little store is the largest use in this community. Grace Episcopal Church, back a few years ago, I believe it was in 2013, they signed a 10-year lease for panels, and it's going to account for 75% of their electricity. So I applaud the Grace Episcopal Church for being proactive and moving forward on ways that they can conserve and provide alternative power, Mr. President. So I offer this tonight as a way of possibly getting our Energy and Environment Office to start talking about some meaningful carbon footprint reductions that can be done from an administrative level. And I think this is one initiative that's worthy. It's being done in all surrounding communities now. We're hearing about the benefits of savings in those communities, which is directly tied to taxes and tax relief. And at this point, Mr. President, I would ask that a roll call vote be taken that the city equipped our municipal and school buildings with solar, Mr. President. Thank you.
Councilor Scarpelli.
If I can, Mr. President, I thank my fellow council to bring this up. I think if we can make amendment to that to add one program that some communities are using now, especially with the local communities taking over local ice rinks and the expenses that are incurred during the cost of electricity for the compressors and what's adjacent at our site, which is the field at Hormel Stadium. What some communities are doing are actually bringing in elevated solar farms where they're parking spots that are underneath the solar panels. And it's something that some communities are doing that are raising money to fund those particular sites. So if you don't mind, if we can add, public parks and recreational facilities, that we can look into that. I think that because if you look at the expense, especially at hockey rinks, and it's so well needed in our community, and looking to find a way to attract some sort of revenue or capture some sort of funding to help with that, alleviate some costs maybe to our youth hockey organizations and high school organizations, that looking at that type of program I think would be beneficial. So if you can, thank you.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I think everybody behind this rail at one point or another has supported green energy initiatives, solar power, so on and so forth. I think this is a great resolution. It's well thought out. It's well researched. I support it wholeheartedly, and I move approval.
Thank you, President Carviello. I want to thank Vice President Marks for putting this on the agenda. I think it's a great resolve, and it's something that we should be striving to do as a city. I know so many homes have gone solar, and more are obviously in the works, and we do have a number of people in City Hall that work to raise awareness, whether it be at the Energy Festival Day or any of the events that we have where we have tables. There's always somebody from Solar Bug and Sunbug there to advise residents to do this on their home, and I think that's a great initiative. They've caught my husband and I's eye. We have gone solar a couple years ago, and the amount of electricity, the amount we save and how good it is for the environment on just a small one-home level, and what we could do if it was this citywide, I think it's something that we should be moving forward with. I believe there may be, I thought we did have a few at the schools. I'm not sure. I think there are, but I think not in use. Okay. Well, I know that we may have some at the school. They should be in use, and having the school system as well as the municipal buildings go solar would save, like you said, I think 45% in Lexington alone. And if we can do the same, it's just definitely a step in the right direction. So I urge Ms. Hunt to give us an update, if we can amend this, just an update on where, if she's looked into this, and any insight we could review before budget time. And then I believe that this should definitely be a topic of conversation when we meet with the Energy and Environment Office come a couple weeks when we talk budget, because it's something that, whether it be an investment or they work like they do with homes, something we should be doing. So thank you, and I second the resolve.
Thank you. Councilor Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also want to thank Councilor Marks for bringing this forward. This is a great resolution. I definitely am in favor of this resolution. I think we should definitely be looking to make sure that all of our city buildings are equipped with this type of technology. So I also wanted to say that I am in support of this, and I thank you for bringing this forward.
Vice President Marks.
Two quick points I forgot to mention. When we installed the windmill behind the McGlynn School, it was great to have. I think it captures maybe 15 or 20% of the electricity for that particular school, but it was also used as a teaching tool. And still to date is used in classrooms as a teaching tool on the effect of green energy and so forth, and the way the mill runs and captures additional excess capacity, which could be sold to private or other type sectors. And this could be an additional also, Mr. President, using this solar energy as a way of teaching our students in the school system on other ways of capturing energy and ways of providing for a greener environment, which I think we all strive for. So it's not just the financial component, which is great. We all want to save the taxpayer money. This has an educational component, and potentially could be used to sell off energy to other people that need it, Mr. President. So it's a win-win for all.
Thank you. And if anyone noticed, Accardi Foods on Commercial Street has done their whole building over with the solar too, and he's invited us over there to take a tour anytime we want to go. On the motion by Councilor Marks, name and address for the record, please.
Andrew Castanetti, Cushion Street, Medford, Mass. Thank you, Councilor Marks, for bringing up the windmill. It got me thinking. A few years back, I was at the Energy Fair, I believe it's called, and I asked the new head person of the electrical department and some other person that works for the city if they could tell me how much energy it generated, dollar for dollar, what the cost would have been initially to build it if we had to pay for it out of our pocket, what the return is for the dollar. And they didn't have any answer whatsoever, first of all. And I believe it's a great idea to use anything that's natural, wind, solar, etc. Supposedly this country put man on the moon 12 or 13 times and returned them safely. If that is true, I believe there's no excuse for us to be burning fossil fuels. There's only probably one good reason, and that is Mr. President Bush holding hands with the Arabs on his Texas ranch. Capitalism, I'm sure. It makes great sense. I just would like to know if it's cost effective. If you put up $1, do you get your dollar back? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. On the motion by Councilor Marks, seconded by Councilor Longo Kern, although a roll call vote has been requested, Mr. Clerk.
Councilor Dela Russo. Yes. Councilor Falco. Yes. Councilor Knight. Yes. Councilor Longo Kern.
Yes.
Vice President Marks.
Yes.
Councilor Scarpelli.
Yes.
President Caviola.
Yes. 7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Motion passes. Motion by Councilor Dela Russo to go under suspension, seconded by Councilor Knight. We have something under suspension. 17-473 offered by Councilor Knight. Whereas on Monday, 5/15/17, the MBTA Fiscal Management and Control Board approved a $57 million spending plan for project and construction management of the Green Line extension. And whereas the MBTA Fiscal Management and Control Board further appropriated $8.7 million in funds for the purpose of preparatory signal upgrading and other infrastructure work necessary for the completion of the Green Line extension, be it resolved that the City of Medford requests that the MADOT/MBTA assign a community liaison to the city as a point of contact person to address community concerns and to share information. Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. This week we got very exciting news that the Fiscal Control Board has moved and appropriated funds to bring the Greenland extension to fruition. So right now we have a $57 million appropriation for project and construction management of the Greenland extension, and included in part of that money, Mr. President, is $8.7 million to provide infrastructure repairs and signal preparation. A lot of this work is going to be done on the corridor that runs parallel to Boston Ave. A lot of this work is going to be done on property that abuts residential neighborhoods and residential properties, residential parcels, Mr. President. As such, I think it's very important that we share the information from the MBTA with our community when they're going to be in there, what type of work they're going to be doing, and I think the best way to accomplish that, Mr. President, would be by assigning a city liaison that's responsible to address all questions and concerns related to the Green Line extension. Therefore, Mr. President, I move for approval on the paper. I hope my colleagues will join me in supporting it.
Councilor Dela Russo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank my colleague for making this motion. That's one thing that's lacking. They've already begun construction and work. They've been clearing brush. They've been doing adjustments to the land back there. They have construction crews on site that are using warning horns in anticipation of the arrival of the trains coming rumbling through. So this has already been underway. There hasn't been a point person on behalf of the project management team. Projects received some federal funding too, if I understand correctly, Councilor. And so this is a wonderful measure that will give people in the neighborhood a person that they can discuss their concerns with. Many of the people that live in the neighborhood have been very active in this project, and they deserve the best. Second.
Vice President Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilor Knight for bringing this up. I would also ask, if you wouldn't mind, if we can amend the paper. I know we all received correspondence from Tufts University. They're in the process right now of revamping the pedestrian walkways at the corner of College Ave and Boston Ave, which is going to be quite an undertaking for a period of time. And any other construction that may be done by the T or in the track area or any other preparation could increase the likelihood of stalled traffic and so forth and safety issues. So I would ask that in conjunction with this paper that also Tufts, the MBTA, and the city of Medford be in constant correspondence regarding the work that's taken place. As we all know, Boston Ave has been increasingly under siege with all the construction of recent, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Councilor Scarpelli.
If I can, again, I thank fellow Councilor Knight for bringing this forward. As we move forward, I too have been, as we move forward with the MBTA and issues and concerns, last week, I believe I got 3 out of the 5 business days, there were pictures again from High Street in Maine with more construction work being done, moving the bus stop down 30 more feet, and again, buses being off the curb. I'm going to hope that put a resolution for next week that these are. I'm sorry, but the concern is with what we're asking for, and I appreciate the reason why I bring this up is as we're asking the MBTA and this great job that they're doing with this great, this great initiative, that there's still the basic concerns that we have still have to be met. I think that I will move forward next week to put a resolution in to eliminate that bus stop until the construction is done on that side. So whether that, it's not an amendment, but just an update. But I thank Councilor Knight for bringing that forward.
Thank you, Councilor Scarpelli. On the motion by Councilor...
Just if I could, to follow up.
Vice President Marks.
While we're talking about the MBTA, if we can get a correspondence or a report back on the request by this council to move the bus stop that was in front of Bargain Spot Liquors on a temporary basis. I don't think we've received a response yet. It's been...
It's just going out still.
It hasn't gone out yet? Okay. If we could follow off, because the construction has started in the West Medford parking lot. So I would ask that if we could just follow up with the T to see how long this process is going to take, would be appreciated.
Point of information, Mr. President.
Point of information, Councilor Dela Russo.
In our packets this week, or on our tables tonight, I forget which one, we received a copy of the correspondence with the revised parking plan that the mayor's office has put out that was distributed to the shopkeepers.
of the neighborhood.
Thank you, Councilor. Name and address for the record, please.
Andrew, Cushion Street. Thank you, councilors, for jostling my memory with Tufts University and the Green Line. If I had it in my power, I would allow Tufts to have their Green Line extension end there on one condition, that they take, let's say it's $1 billion even, out of their $7 billion endowment that they have in cash. And they don't pay any real estate tax, and they don't pay any corporation tax as a university. I would have them put up whatever it takes before their station is completed, before it's even started, to have an underground tunnel from Tufts University to right behind you, Councilor President Caviello, and where the red brick building is, I'd have the entrance to the Green Line, and then Medford Square and the whole city would have the eternal stimulus with a downtown subway, just like Malden and just like Winchester.
Thank you. On the motion by Councilor Knight, seconded by Councilor Dela Russo. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Motion to take papers in the hands of the clerk. Seconded by Councilor Knight. Offered by Vice President Marks, be it resolved that the grass and the weeds at the corner of Mass Ave and South Border Road be cut. Vice President Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. If anyone's been on the council for a number of years, this is an annual request that goes out every year that the corner of Mass Ave and South Border Road, the grass and weeds be cut. And once again, I'm just requesting that it be added to the long laundry list of DPW tasks that this area be attended to immediately, Mr. President.
On the motion by Vice President Marks, seconded by Councilor Knight. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Offered by Vice President Marks, be it resolved that speeding on the lower end of Fulton Street be discussed. Vice President Marks.
Again, Mr. President, this is one of the perennial issues that we try to deal with each and every year. The bottom of Fulton Street across from the ball field continually is an area where speeding happens. There's been several recommendations. I think Council Lungo offered one not too long ago to put the electronic speed sign in that particular street. I know I've offered it on several times, Mr. President. And again, I'm getting calls from area residents that are afraid to go outside. That's how fast the cars are coming down from the hill to that lower part of Fulton Street. And they're very concerned, Mr. President. There was just a major accident in the town of Sandwich where two senior citizens were struck and killed, Mr. President, walking in a crosswalk. So when I bring these issues up, Mr. President, it's not just to vent or to make hot air. It's to actually get results when it comes to pedestrian safety in this community. And, you know, I'm tired of talking about unpainted crosswalks, about speeding on our streets, Mr. President. You know, several months back, we voted unanimously to lower the speed limit from 30 to 25 on all non-posted roads. I haven't seen one sign erected yet, Mr. President. Not one sign alerting residents of this community, you know what, there's a change in our ordinances that only allow you to drive 25 on non-posted roads. That's a huge change in the community. When surrounding communities did it, they posted it through electronic billboards, they sent out messages, they did a great job getting it out to the community. I haven't heard anything in this community, nothing at all. So I would ask, Mr. President, in addition to what was just mentioned, that the reduction in speed on all non-posted roads to 25 be promoted in this city through either reverse 911, which I get 3 calls a night, or through other means, maybe the electronic billboard posted strategically in entrance ways to our community. But we have to get the message out, Mr. President, and we also have to start erecting these signs that take down the old 30 mile an hour and put up to 25 mile an hour in the interest of public safety.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. On the motion by Councilor Knight, seconded by Councilor Dela Russo. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Offered by Vice President Marks, be it resolved that the grass and the weeds at the corner of Mass Ave and South Border Road be cut. Vice President Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Seconded by Councilor Knight. Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, I'd also like to amend the paper and request that the Traffic Division of the Medford Police Department establish a directed patrol at the foot of Fulton Street by Gillis Park during the hours where permanent events are taking place, Mr. President. We're seeing Little League taking place at Gillis Park and some Little League softball, high school baseball, and so forth taking place at Higgy Park. It's an area that's certainly well-traveled by pedestrians that are going between the two facilities, two locations. Parking's tight down there, as we know, and it requires some parking further away and requires people to walk. So I'd ask that the Traffic Division of the Medford Police Department establish a directed patrol down there with particular focus made during hours that those two parks, Hickey and Gillis, are permitted, Mr. President.
Councilor Longo Kern.
Thank you, President Carviello. Thank you for the resolve. I also have another one on with regards to speeding. It seems maybe it's the summer time, but springtime, and people are really noticing the speeding in our community. I've gotten a number of complaints. If we could ask for an update as an amendment with regards to we appropriated money for a speed monitoring sign. We had one, it was broken, and we did has been months now. So if we can get an update, I believe they may have even were purchasing two. If we can get an update with regards to the status of the speed monitoring signs as well as the radar guns, the new radar guns. I did get an update on South Street that Traffic Division of the Police Department has been out recently, so we just want to make sure we get those speed signs up and running too, because it's another effective way. The one on Elm, I see it every day, deterring people from once they see 39, 40. I see people slowing down, and it works. It works. So if we can just get an update on that, that'd be great.
Thank you. On the motion by Councilor Marks, as amended by Councilor Marks, as amended by Councilor Knight, and amended by Councilor Longo Kern. Seconded by Councilor Falco. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Offered by Vice President Marks, be it resolved that the potholes in front of 55 Hutchins Road be repaired in the interest of public safety. Vice President Marks.
Again, Mr. President, there was some recent road work done on Hutchins Road, and they beautifully paved a portion of the street, and right where that portion stops, there's several giant potholes. So if they went another 3 feet, we would have covered all these potholes, but apparently they only go to whatever the parameters are. But in the interest of public safety, Mr. President, those potholes have to be repaired immediately in front of 55 Hutchins Road.
Thank you. On the motion, Councilor Longo Kern.
While we're on potholes, thank you, President Carviello. The bottom of Rita, where it hits Highland Ave, there's another extremely large pothole I got a call on. If we could get that filled in the interest of public safety as well. Thank you.
On the motion by Councilor Marks, as amended by Councilor Longo Kern, seconded by Councilor Falco. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Offered by Vice President Marks. Be it resolved that the broken curb at 123 Placid Road be replaced in the interest of public safety. Vice President Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, there was road work done recently, utility road work on Placid Road across from Placid Park. The utility work is done. They left the site a complete mess. The trucks that were there from the utility company rode over the curbing and broke the curbing in front of the homeowner's home, Mr. President. And really, someone from our building department or from the city needs to go out there and find out what's happening, why the site was left in such terrible condition, and why municipal property, which was damaged, has not been brought to the attention of the utility company, which pulls a bond and requires them, Mr. President, I believe it's $1 million or so bond, requires them, if any damage is done, to replace the damage. The only way the damage is going to be replaced is if the city has a clerk of the work that calls these utility companies, as Councilor Scarpelli has mentioned ad nauseum, calls these utility companies on the carpet. And it's not happening, Mr. President. They're leaving job sites a filthy mess, and it's a disgrace, Mr. President. It shouldn't be happening on our streets. So I would ask that that curb be repaired immediately, and that someone from the building department go out there and address the issue of the broken curb, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, I would once again request that the Engineering Department respond to Council Resolution 16-404. This resolution requested a breakdown of all streets that were opened by public utilities from January 1st, 2014 to date. It's been 18 months. We have not received this. Now, Councilor Marks puts a resolution on about 123 Plaisted Road and public utilities being out there, and it leads me to question as to whether or not our Engineering Department knows when our public utilities are going out and tearing up our streets, because quite frankly, I don't think it takes 18 months to get a response for anything. So with that being said, I wholeheartedly support the resolution and I second the proposal.
On the motion by Councilor Marks, seconded by Councilor Knight. All those in favor? Motion passes. Offered by Councilor Falco, be it resolved that the grass be cut on the corner of Fountain Street and Webster Street. Councilor Falco.
Thank you, Mr. President. This here is, like the previous issue regarding grass trimming, it's been a yearly request. I drove by the corner of Fountain and Webster tonight on the way to the meeting. The grass has got to be at least 2 to 3 feet tall. You could lose a dog in there. I mean, it's really bad.
Well, they don't want the dogs there anymore.
So it needs to be addressed immediately. It's also a public safety concern. Anyone coming out of Fountain Street, taking a left onto Webster, you really can't see the oncoming traffic. So it really needs to be addressed, hopefully sooner than later. I believe actually this is a DCR property, so I think
yes.
The DCR needs to be contacted. So if we could have that done, it would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, if you could contact the DCR for that, we'd appreciate it. Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, I'd just like to amend the paper to request that the DCR also provide us with the maintenance schedule for the area that's in question.
Thank you. As amended by Councilor Knight. On the motion by Councilor Falco, is amended by Councilor Knight, seconded by Councilor Del Russo. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Offered by Councilor Longo Kern, be it resolved that the speeding and heavy trucking on South Street and Harvard Street be deterred and discussed in the interest of public safety. Councilor Longo Kern.
Thank you, President Carviello. I've got some complaints about the speeding and the heavy trucking on those two streets. Multiple people on South have complained recently. The Mack trucks are coming down South. There are manhole covers that are sinking a little bit, so it hits the manhole and houses are shaking. I think we all got an email today from another woman that has been complaining for several months. We've talked about this. I believe this is the third time just from her and her neighbors complaining that it's come up on the council floor. And the speeding and the heavy trucking, it would need to do something to deter it. And I know we've all spoken about it. We've mentioned striping, we've mentioned raised crosswalks, and I'm sure it'll be mentioned again tonight. But also, I know there's no necessarily four-way intersection there, but it was asked if we could do stop signs, 1 or 2, maybe at Curtis, maybe at Walnut. You have hundreds of people walking from Medford Square down South Street Court, down into Walnut Street, hundreds of people crossing every day. So we could possibly put a stop sign just to slow people down. I know that is maybe is the easier resolve than raised crosswalks because it falls on deaf ears. But you have the raised crosswalk on Winthrop, and then you come down and take the turn onto South, and right after the raised crosswalk, you get in complaints that people are picking up the speed. It works to deter it in that part of Winthrop, and then people are picking up speed, taking the turn, and flying down South Street. Now, when you have these Mack trucks doing it at night, it almost sounds like the airplane noise that everybody else in the city is suffering from. So it's disturbing, it's a public safety concern, and it's really messing with people's quiet enjoyment of their homes. And it's come to a point where something needs to be done, and I'm not even sure if we've got a response on this. I do know that the traffic division was out over the last few days doing some ticketing and monitoring, and I'm very thankful for that. We do need the speed monitor sign there for several weeks to just let people know what the speed limit is and how fast they're going, but also whether it be speed bumps or I'm proposing a couple stop signs on South Street. I think that would help. And I also know Harvard Street is suffering from the same thing. I think you have the truck routes that are coming down Harvard or South, and it's just not a good place to obviously have your windows open on a summer night and when you're hearing speeding, or it's definitely a public safety concern if you're trying to cross the street. So I would propose that this be on the Traffic Commission's June agenda. If we could make that a part of the resolution, that stop signs on South Street be part of the Traffic Commission's agenda come June, and we be notified of that. That would be helpful, because that's something I would like to plan on attending, and I think a lot of people on South would too.
Thank you.
I'd also just want to make sure that we're, I know Traffic Division's been on South, want to make sure they're also on Harvard so that we can try to deter it. And, if trucks are going to drive down there, I know we did make Harvard no trucking, but then the signs were taken down per the state. We need to make sure they're at least following the speed limit, do something for our residents. And I appreciate my council's support. Roll call vote.
Thank you. Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, I'd like to amend the resolution and request that the Traffic Commission examine the feasibility of banning heavy trucking on South Street.
As amended by Councilor Knight.
Move approval. No, second.
Councilor Dela Russo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to amend this paper further, that the Commissioner of Public Works update the council regarding the implementation of additional raised crosswalks. The only one I believe that we have in the city on Winthrop Street seems to some to do something, but it's in the 3 years that it's in place. In the 3 years we've been awaiting the other 2 experimental raised crosswalks, which have yet to arrive. The one existing one has now squished itself out, so to speak, and is just a mere cause for deacceleration as one achieves rocket speed coming down Winthrop Street, so that they can make lights and swerve their way to the South Street Bridge and the Mystic Valley Parkway. The councilor also, so I'd appreciate an update on what the plans are of the administration for implementation of these additional crosswalks, which do serve an effect for public safety and to deter speeding, where they're maintained, painted, and implemented in a pattern that serves the needs of the citizens. The councilor also pointed out the trucking's sounds are like airplanes. I don't know if I agree with that, but I will point out that today, as I observed, the landing pattern of some of the airplanes coming down over the Wellington area, they were so low that if you were to stand on the roof of one of the 9th Street condo buildings, I'm sure you could have touched the wheels of the planes as they were being deployed.
Thank you, Councilor. Vice President Marks.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I thank my council colleague for bringing this up. If I recall right, I think it was a year and a half ago, this council was told that there was a traffic engineering study being done at the corner of Winthrop and South Street to improve pedestrian safety. That is a terrible, terrible intersection with cars coming down Winthrop trying to take a left onto South, or coming down the other side of Winthrop trying to take a right onto South. If we can get an update on that traffic engineering study, the way it sounded, the money was there, the study was done, and I think people were waiting to see, the results, and we have yet to see any. Several years back, Mr. President, and it didn't meet much fanfare, but I offered several resolutions to create a trucking team within the City of Medford Police Department. And it's other communities have them, Mr. President. I know the state police does a fair amount of trucking violations within our community. We have major trucking routes that run throughout our city. And our police department, to be quite frank with you, their hands are tied when it comes to these 18-wheelers. First of all, we don't have the equipment to do the testing of capacity. We don't have the equipment that weighs vehicles. We don't have a trucking team that's equipped to pull these 18-wheelers over and are trained to look at the logs that the drivers are supposed to keep by state and federal law. And I think we fall short of the mark protecting not only our city roads, but our residents, Mr. President, from these 18-wheelers that are traversing down quite residential areas. And, you know, I keep referring to Santilli Circle because I live in the Wellington area, but we all remember what took place back some years ago when there was an oil truck that tipped over in Santilli Circle and lit part of the senior housing on fire because, Mr. President, the driver was speeding. And I think it would go a long way and pay for itself. When you pull an 18-wheeler over, it's not a $50 or $100 ticket. It's upward from what I'm being told, $1,500 to $2,000 when they start going through the potential violations for these 18-wheelers. So I would recommend, Mr. President, that the administration once again look into the creation of a trucking team within the police department to serve as the eyes and ears on our roads, Mr. President, in particular, when you have other communities that are diverting these trucks off their roads. We seem to be getting the brunt of it in this community, and I think after time, you know, the truckers all talk. They say, gee, where's the best least resistance that we can go and not worry? And I guarantee you, the city of Medford's a good route to take, Mr. President, because we're ill-equipped to be pulling these trucks over. And I don't think we can depend on state police to do all our policing in the community when it comes to these heavy trucks, Mr. President. So I thank Councilor Longo-Kern for bringing this up and hope that Chief Sacco and the administration train some officers and create a trucking team, Mr. President.
Councilor Knight.
Yes, Mr. President, I think that's a great idea. In the interim, however, we're not going to have a trucking team, so I'd like to further amend the resolution requesting that the state police establish directed patrols at South Street and at Harvard Street for the purpose of monitoring trucking with their truck division.
Thank you. On the motion by Councilor Longo-Kern, as amended by Councilor Knight, Councilor Della Russo, and Councilor Marks, seconded by Councilor Falco. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. Name and address of the record.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rob Capucci, 71 Evans Street. This matter about the trucking has come up at the Medford Police community meetings, and even if they had all of the equipment, they can't do it because of the traffic that would back up behind the trucks. I forget the detective's name. I directly asked him to do this from seeing the way 18-wheelers turn right here out at the point at the Citizens Bank out here, Century Bank. They physically can't do it even if they had the equipment. I would support what Councilor Knight offered, which is have the state police do it outside the city limits so as not to congest the city.
They do it on Route 16
further.
currently. They do it all over. They do it.
I brought this up at the community police meetings. They said right out to me they physically can't do it because of the traffic nightmare that would happen. Those truck pullovers, they take a long time to do. I'm just giving you the information I got directly from the Medford Police, and also too on the matter, if I could.
Point of information, Vice President Marks.
And I appreciate Mr. Capucci bringing that up, but I think it sends a bad message, and I didn't hear from the police department, but the fact that they're not willing to pull trucks over because it may create a concern with traffic congestion, to me is a ridiculous statement, because we're trying to pull trucks over that may be in violation of traffic particular citations, and to say we don't have space to pull them over is, I see them pulled over on the Fellsway. If you want to talk about a busy road, there's ways of doing it, Mr. President, to keep traffic without impeding traffic and also providing public safety. So I hope that's not the reason why we're not doing it in this community, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
It's not that they're not willing. It's just that with a current force of only 104 officers and not having the necessary capacity to do these things. They're definitely willing. They definitely want to do it. But they looked at it, Counselor, and it's physically not possible for them. They want to do it. Of course they want to do it and provide public safety at the same time. I hope I didn't give them
Point of information, Councilor Knight.
With all due respect to the gentleman behind the rail, I think that it would be best if we heard what they do and don't want to do from the police department, not the individual. I understand that he does attend the meetings. However, we are sending a resolution forward and we're asking for certain information. We want that information to come back from the police department, and I don't want to deter from that.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Okay, finish.
I would agree with that. Talk directly to the police, and I'm sure they're going to confirm exactly what I just said. On the matter of what Councilor Della Russo brought up about the low-flying planes and the noise, I read an article. Maybe some of you saw it. I posted it around Facebook. There is a problem in Los Angeles out of LAX. It's a health problem. These low-flying planes are producing something called ultrafine particles that are hurting respiratory systems of people that are going to the hospital. These low-flying planes, I mean, I know the city council, it's up to our state and our federal delegation to do something, but maybe the city council as a body can look into this article. I can send it to you and see what their findings were. It's in communities 10 miles around LAX. We're what, 7, 8 miles away from Logan, and we are, from that presentation given by Massport a few weeks ago, we are ground zero. Medford is directly being assaulted by these things. I mean, the noise is definitely a problem, but I went to the hospital a couple weeks ago because I had upper respiratory problems. I got some medication. There was one person waiting in the urgent care waiting room and 2 people on either side of me with the same problem. Another person had it that I'm currently seeing now, and we should probably look into medical records going on and determine if these ultrafine particles are invading our airspace and falling on our schools and everything else. The noise could be a small problem compared to something that could be much larger. Thank you for your time, Mr. President.
Councilor Longo-Kern.
Mr. Capucci, if you don't mind sending us that article. I think we spoke about this a couple weeks ago, and I did bring it up and asked Alicia Hunt, our environmental agent. We probably should ask even the health department too, if they've done any research or if they know of anything like this, and obviously try to move forward to get them to fly higher. I guess might be our only option from that presentation, but something definitely needs to be done with the noise, and obviously this issue, it's very disturbing.
I'll make sure to send that to you. Thank you, Council. Thank you.
On the motion by Councilor Longo-Kern, name and address for the record.
Hi, Cheryl Rodriguez, 281 Park Street. Just real quick, if you're going to be testing for debris...
We're not talking about airplanes, we're talking about traffic. So if you want to bring that up, you want to come back with that after? No,
Well, I just responded to the comment. I just responded to the comment. It'll be 30 seconds or less. If you can have Alicia Hunt contact me, the back of my house is covered in black soot from plane debris, and if they want to test that and find out what it is, that'd be great.
Thank you. Name and address for the record, please.
Briefly, I just wanted to say I'm not sure if the local police on this 18-wheeler business can enforce outside of speeding tickets and things of that nature. Police maybe even had trouble 10 years ago to enforce 2-hour parking, and that's why we inherited Republic Parking, I presume. So maybe it's, I'm just thinking out loud, maybe that would be a problem in a job for the state police.
Thank you. On the motion, Councilor Longo-Kern.
Oh, sorry. I'm all set, thank you.
On the motion by Councilor Longo-Kern, amended by Councilor Knight, Councilor Della Russo, and Councilor Marks, and seconded by Councilor Falco. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Offered by Councilor Knight and President Caravello, be it resolved that the Medford City Council wish Judy Granara a very happy 75th birthday. Councilor Knight.
Judy's been a fixture in the community for a number of times, along with her husband, John. I wanted to take an opportunity to wish her a very happy and momentous 75th birthday. I hope my council colleagues will join me in wishing her the same.
Thank you. And happy birthday to Judy. Motion by Councilor Knight, seconded by Councilor Del Russo. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Offered by President Caravello, be it resolved that the Medford City Council sends its sincere and deepest condolences to the family of Grace Colonna, who passed away this week at the age of 100 years old. Her presence in our community will be missed. If we could stand for a moment of silence for Grace Colonna, it would be appreciated. Thank you. Petitions, presentations, and similar matters. 17469, petition from Cheryl Rodriguez, 281 Park Street, Medford, Mass., to speak to the council on the Medford citywide yard sale on June 10th for the Friends of Fellsmere Heights, who will receive registration fees. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Rodriguez from 281 Park Street, and I'm just here to promote the Medford citywide yard sale. This is a great eco-friendly fundraiser that will have no negative effects on the city. I got the idea from running the Roberts Elementary yard sale. We've run 4 of them, and each time we've raised $1,000 for enrichment in the schools. So I thought that citywide would be great. We pay for trash, so why throw things out that are still good that others can use? So the plan is on June 10th, people will register ahead of time for $25, and your address will appear on a citywide map. If you don't have a yard, then you can sell at the Condon Shell. So we'll have tables set up there. We have the Shell reserved. And people will shop around to all the different yard sales, and it'll be great because the money will go towards the Friends of Fellsmere Heights. Anyone that doesn't know what the Friends of Fellsmere Heights is, they approached me after they found me involved with the 61 Locust Street development and the working to right-size the Break Pro project. So we share a common goal of stopping overdevelopment that they think will be detrimental to the quality of life. They want to work with Medford and Malden officials to purchase the Malden Hospital property and return the majority of the land to parkland with an appropriate size development. The purchase would be made with a combination of CPA funds, grants, as well as donations and fundraisers such as this. So this project, if that project went through, it would have a seriously negative effect on the Fulton Heights area, so it's very relevant to Medford residents to try to move this project forward and stop that area from being overdeveloped, because several hundred more cars coming down Fulton Spring and Fulton Street would be very detrimental to the quality of life of Medford residents. So this group has also generously agreed to split their proceeds with the abutters for the 61 Locust Street or Old Shaw's project. As residents and myself, I feel it's important to come out and support them in their fight for their neighborhood as well as the rest of our city. Because once there's overdevelopment, overcrowding in our schools, it's going to be too late to turn that back, so we have to be proactive and work hard for that now. So I hope that many of you will join me in registering for this yard sale on June 10th to support our neighborhoods and protect them from overdevelopment. We have a Facebook page, the Medford Citywide Yard Sale Facebook page. We also have an email address, medfordcityyardsale@gmail.com. So the yard sale will be on June 10th from 9 to 2, and I hope to see many of you there.
Thank you. Councilor Longo-Kern.
Thank you, President Caraviello. How will people know which homes are involved besides the Facebook page? Is there going to be like a reverse 911, or how else can we find out?
I don't believe there'll be a reverse 911. We're going to advertise the event on the billboard, so it'll have our Facebook information so that people can go there for maps. There will be maps available on that day. I'm hoping that there will be some available a little earlier than that, perhaps at the City Hall or the library.
Oh, so should people like maybe start at the Condon Shell and there'll be maps there, so
Yes.
if they want to go to different homes? Okay. Sounds good.
Thank
Great
you.
job. Thank you.
Thanks.
Motion to receive, place on file, Mr. President.
Motion by Councilor Knight to receive and place on file. All those in favor? Motion passes. Records.
Oh, Mr. President.
Vice President Marks.
I just have an announcement, Mr. President, if I could, that's beneficial to seniors. Every year there's called the Vegetable $5 registration, and this allows seniors to register for fresh vegetables and produce. And I just want to let our seniors know that it's $5 a bag for seniors living in Medford. This weekly pickup program on Tuesday afternoons from July through October. You must register in advance, and registration will take place Tuesday, June 13th, 2:30 to 3:30 at Edgerly Hall in the Salt and Stall Building, 121 Riverside Ave, and Tuesday, June 20th, 10:30 to 11:30 at the Senior Center on 101 Riverside Ave. And I just want to thank the Medford Farmers Market, Hallmark Health, and Mass in Motion for their support of this. and it's a great way of our seniors, Mr. President, to get homegrown and reasonably priced vegetables. So I think it's a great idea, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Councilor Del Russo.
Mr. President, the table records of the meeting of May 9th, 2017 were passed to me for inspection. I apologize for my absence due to illness at the end of the meeting due to my allergies. So I've reviewed those records and moved their approval, Mr. President.
Thank you, and the council accepts your apology. Councilor Longo Kern.
Speak for yourself. Thank you, President Carviello. I just wanted to ask if we've heard anything from the administration with regards to budget hearings or when we would expect to get the budget book or pieces thereof.
I have asked several times, and they are working on them, and that was the answer I have.
Okay, and then did they give you any insight with regards to when we could start our budget proceedings?
Again, I asked, I said, if we have some of the departments, if we could get started on them, they would like to wait till they're fully complete and do it all at once.
Do it all at once. So what is our plan? We're going to do like a full Saturday? Are we going to do several nights?
As soon as we get them, I'm going to say I have asked several times for them, and they are working on them, and hopefully we'll have them shortly. So we can
maybe
make plans.
Through the chair ask as a
Mr.
body.
Clerk, if you could make a request to the mayor when the budget will be ready.
So that we could maybe have it for a week before we start meeting. That'll be.
I've made multiple requests, as I know we all want to study them before we do it, so we don't have problems that we had in the past. Councilor Knight.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I'd like to take an opportunity to thank all the individuals that were able to come out and support this weekend's Memorial Day ceremonies by going down to the Oak Grove Cemetery and decorating the graves of our fallen veterans, Mr. President. Every year, the Post-45 American Legion puts together a contingency of volunteers. A number of them come from the Medford Elks, the St. Clement School, the Boys and Girl Scouts, and a number of other organizations across the city of Medford to come and show their support for the veterans and support for the Memorial Day celebration, Mr. President. I had the opportunity of going out Saturday morning with my son and my father out onto Aspen Lawn, and we decorated a number of graves with some members of the Medford Elks, and these service organizations do a great job making Medford the great community that we live in and that we get to enjoy. So I'd like to take an opportunity to thank them all for their help and hard work in preparing for this weekend's Memorial Day ceremonies.
Thank you. And if I could remind everybody for tomorrow, the Veterans Lunch sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce will be here tomorrow at noontime. It's free to all veterans in the community. So anyone who could come out who hasn't been here in the past, it's a nice turnout. I would request that your presence be here. And don't forget, Monday at the cemetery, the Memorial Day celebration. I'm sure Barry will call you and let you know. But just a reminder of that. Vice President Marks.
Mr. President, I would respectfully ask that we dedicate this meeting to the victims of the concert terror attack that took place yesterday in England, Mr. President, and that we also have a moment of silence.
If we could rise for a moment of silence. Councilor Longo Kern.
Thank you, President Carviello. If I could just remind the council and see if we made any progress with regards to maybe meeting with the Department of Public Works Director, who's very responsive to our individual requests, but maybe to talk to him about citywide pothole, sunken manhole covers within our city. That, along with the speeding, has been kind of overwhelming, and I can't keep up with emailing or texting him special requests. So I know we did discuss it to meet with him and see what we can do. Do we need more fill? Do we need to hire an outside contractor? What can we, how are we proceeding? Are we going just by complaints, or are we going street by street like we probably should be?
I believe the two papers that got referred to the subcommittee were one to create a sign ordinance relative to street sweeping, and the other one would be a 30-day requirement to remove stumps. Those were the two papers, I believe, that were referred to the subcommittee.
That is correct.
I think we asked for a committee of the whole meeting with the DPW director to discuss potholes throughout our city.
And I will try to squeeze that in before our budget meetings.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we're...
Thank you. On the motion by Councilor Longo Kern. Seconded by Councilor Del Russo. All those in favor? Motion passes. Records of the meeting of May 16, 2017. were passed to Councilor Falco. Councilor Falco, how have you found those records?
Thank you, Mr. President. I reviewed the records, they appear to be in order, and I move approval.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn by Councilor Knight, seconded by Councilor Delarusso. All those in favor? Motion passes. Meeting adjourned.